Guys, I see a lot of background noise. Can you mute yourself? Whenever you have a question, you can turn your mic on. Okay, and I'm recording the class, so at the end of the day, I'll give you the recording to everybody, guys, online as well as physical students. Okay, I'm just writing the agenda. What are things we are going to cover? So I will cover installation types. First, I will give you today checkpoint basics plus installation. Checkpoint basics, which will be the platform we are going to use is R80.10, because right now exam is only available for R80.10. Also at this time, what is released is R80.40 is being released, but they do not have exam. And in CCSA right now, what is being covered is R80.10. So I'm going to cover that platform. The version number is that. I will cover installation types, distributed and standalone. Okay. And I am also going to cover, after that, we will be covering firewall. Okay. After firewall, we will cover NAT rules. This is all going to be hands-on, real labs, no theory, right? So theory will be there just to give you idea, but I will show you every single lab hands-on, right? So it's not like just theory is covered and the lab is not done. Lab will be done for each of the items. Then we are going to do HTTPS inspection, okay, which is basically more like an intercepting thing. Then we will do mobile access. Mobile access is a fancy name given to remote access VPNs. And in this remote access array, remote access VPNs, which I will cover VPL, the SSL with the network extender. And I'm also going to cover ipsec remote access. Okay, so three VPNs will be basically covered in this. Then I'm going to cover site-to-site VPN. Okay, these are the labs I'm going to cover, plus the theory of these. Okay, and then I'm going to cover clustering. Okay, and after that I'm going to cover IPS, anti-bot. These are basically small topics which are basically there. Okay, so this is majorly your CCSA syllabus. Put it into the pointers. Further, it has a lot of stuff. So firewall has a lot of implicit rule, explicit rules, how to create your rules. Then you have layered approach, which is a new firewall thing that they have. So there are a lot of other things inside it. Geolocation filtering, a lot of other stuff is there. So that will all be covered. But these are the, let's say, call them the chapter names. Okay. In this, the most important for you, because you will find a lot of information on the internet about these things. You may not find very advanced netting information. You will not find a lot of HTTPS and clustering, real practical labs, working labs you won't find. People are struggling to see clustering working. Okay. There are a lot of theory covered for clustering, but they do not have a working clustering shown to the students, right? So that will be basically done. So this is the agenda that we have. Cool. And it's being recorded, so you can refer to the recording anytime once you want to see that class. So checkpoint again is a UTM solution, right? Unified Threat Management, and it basically covers a huge number of devices, which I'm going to look at checkpoint website itself. So we'll go to checkpoint platform comparison. Okay, so as I said, it's a UTM, it's a Unified Threat Management Solution, and it has various platforms available, which is for small offices. They have 3100 series UTMs, right? Now, what does a UTM contain? Basically, UTM contains, let's go down here to see what other things it includes. It should be at the bottom somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so there is a firewall, there is identity awareness. Okay, this one I forgot. I will also be covering identity awareness. So firewall, identity awareness, IPsec, VPN, networking and clustering, mobile access, IPS, application control, content awareness, URL filtering, antivirus, anti-spam, anti-bot, and DLP, and couple of more things here. Okay, this is what is a UTM solution. It's no more a firewall solution, right? Like you have done Cisco ASA firewall. That's just a firewall. It doesn't have all these functionalities, or maybe it has few, but it doesn't have the complete firewall functionality, right? So UTM are the devices which have these features, and we will look at all these features, how nicely they are integrated and how easily you can basically access your firewall solution, right? The way it is designed, that's a whole point, that even after having so many features, Checkpoint is designed in such a way that you will not face many problems. If you face, Checkpoint will actually give you the error message exactly where exactly is the error. Okay, it's a beautifully designed interface. So these are the blades that we are going to do, and let's go back up to see the comparisons here. So Checkpoint sells various appliance models as well as VM models, right? So these are the appliance model. Appliance means physical firewall sold to the customer. So 3100 series, if you see, I'm not sure if you are able to see it clearly, is a branch office solution, which means it is going to be for the small offices. Sunil, I'm recording it myself. I'll give you later. Okay, I'll send you the recording in the group.
Okay, sir.
So these are different models. We have 3100, 3200 is for branch office. For small offices, which means a little bigger office than branch office, is 5000 series. And mid size is again 5000, but it's 5800, 5600 in these. If you look at the capacity itself, why they are like that, so you can see the kind of capacity difference which is there. This can handle firewall blade can handle 4 Gbps maximum, but here these models can handle 14.5 Gbps, right? So based on the capacity, they have named these as different modules, right? Of course, the pricing varies because these are the higher models, so they will be charging higher price for it. Okay, and then you have the IPS NG firewall, next generation firewall. The NG firewall we will discuss in detail. You see the firewall, they are saying firewall and they are saying next generation firewall. What is the difference? तो चेकपॉइंट पे इनका ईमेल भेजो, बोलो मैडम को, मुझे भेज दिया. Guys, give me 1 second.
Hi, Vikas. This is Balaji.
Hi, Bala. Yes. Hello.
Hi, Vikas. This is Balaji. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. No. Right. So we were talking about these models, and you see the NG firewall throughput is much less as compared to the firewall and the VPN, IPS, and other things that we have, right? Because NG firewall has to do a lot of activities. We will discuss what are those activities. You see that IPS, the threat prevention, is even lesser, right, with the same hardware, because it actually contains a lot of stuff inside it. There is more inspection that happens inside it. Because of that, we have to the processing is more and the throughput is less because the efforts are more. Okay, what are the various NICs? So these are the physical aspect of the appliance. These are physical devices. So these are the physical aspect of the appliance. What is the RAM being used? How much is the total weight? And all those things are basically given for these platforms, right? A detailed overview of it. Further, they have for large enterprises, they have bigger appliances, 15,000 and 23,000 series. Okay, you don't need to remember model numbers and all that. Nobody cares about it, right? So don't put it like an engineering cram exam. If somebody is going to ask you to cram something, remember the concepts, right? How does network, how does firewall work, what is threat prevention, and all those things. So basically, if you look at it, the throughput that you have is much higher, correct? Is much higher, and as compared to the basic model that we have, like 4 Gbps, and here how much? 58 Gbps. So it is suitable for a large enterprise.
Just to be clear, all of these are separate modules. Firewall, VPN, IPS.
These are all separate modules. Absolutely. These are all. Firewall is a separate module. VPN is something else. IPS is something else. NG firewall is different. Basically, in Cisco solution, most of the time they are integrated as one package, right? So you don't see them as two, different things. You see them as different features. Here, they are different technologies altogether. The reality is, they are all different technologies on the top of the operating system, right? But different vendor used to sell them different. So you see that these are large enterprises where you have like telcos and all that. I think telcos also, they have a bigger solution here. So their data center telcos, and they have 44,000, which gives you up to 377 Gbps. So think about from 4 Gbps for a small office to 377 Gbps. What is Gbps? Gigabit per second, right? So that's a kind of throughput possible. It's gigabit per second. And then it doubles it with 64,000, it doubles to 880 Gbps. Okay, they have a couple of more models for smart branch offices, 1400, and the capacity is much lower. These are branch office solution. Most of the time, all the solutions have all the features available to them. For the features, you have to buy licenses. So if you want firewall license, you buy firewall license. If you want to buy IPS threat prevention, so all these are basically license based. You have to purchase license separately for anything that you want to buy in a checkpoint solution. Other than the physical appliance, you have to buy license separately because these are software licenses, right? So this is, how many blades are there? 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 15, 15 plus, put it one more, kind of 16 different features are basically there, right? Generally, in all other vendors also, these are available, but they try to bundle them as together. So these are different appliances. Then Checkpoint has virtual solutions also, which is like a VM, which I'm going to use today as a VM solution, right? So we will look at now the installation types. Okay, so installation types, there are multiple installation types. First, I'm going to talk about standalone. Okay, and then we have distributed. Distributed is the most famous, but if you have a very small office, you can have standalone. What is the difference? In standalone, what happens is you have a management server plus the blades in single installation, right? So in standalone, what will happen is you have management server plus blades in the single installation. In distributed, what happens is you have management server separately installed.
Hello.
Yes. Okay, management server will be separately installed, plus you will have blades on separately installed. Now there are a couple of things like in checkpoint and ASA and other things, we basically utilize single platform to manage everything, right? Here in checkpoint we have a management station, so there will be a management station, okay, and there will be firewalls. So this is an SDN approach. In SDN, what happens is you have a controller, right? So let's put this as MS management server, and these are the blades. This is the official name given to these. The firewalls or the UTM solutions are basically blades. So management server is responsible for managing these blades, right? Which means any configuration you will do at management station. Can you do any configuration on the blade directly? No, you can't. Okay, you can do basic maintenance task on the blade. You want to delete something locally on the configuration, you want to add routing switching, you want to add any kind of IP address, you can locally do on the blade. That is possible. But anything related to the firewall solution, the UTM solution, IPS, threat detection, VPN, ipsec VPN, remote access, SSL, anything has to be done using management server. This is the SDN controller. This is the software defined networking controller, right? So in this solution, you will be able to manage a huge number of blades using a single management server. This management server is known as Smart Console these days.
These app install Smart Console.
Sorry? So management server is known as Smart Console. It used to be called Smart Dashboard in the previous version, right? Because some blade still works on the Smart Dashboard. So it used to be Smart Dashboard. Now it's no more Smart Dashboard. It is known as Smart Console. And using Smart Console, you are going to manage all these blades. There are a lot of configuration which can be done using CLI, but that will be all related to these blades and will not be anything related to the management server function, which is basically all the firewall, the unified threat detection functions. All that has to be configured using this. Okay, so Smart Console will be basically responsible for managing these blades. Anything related to the UTM functions will be done here. Anything related to the basic management of the routing, switching, IP addressing, everything will be done at the blade level. Correct? These are the basic. We are not getting into clustering and advanced things right now. We will do at the end of it once you have a good control over the local stuff. Now there are two things that we need to discuss here. One is Smart Console, which we discussed is a software for the management server software or management software. Correct? The other the system that you have is called Gaia. right? So this is basically when we are going to use those tools, you will realize what is Gaia and what is Smart Console, because on the top of it, it will be written. It will be visible to us that this is Gaia and this is Smart Console. Okay. So when we install a blade or even management server, the base operating system will be Gaia. Okay. The base operating system of the blades will be Gaia. What will be the function of Gaia? The functions are going to be the hardware management, which basically means anything related to IP addressing, routing protocol, switching functions, okay, routing protocol, BGP, OSPF, IP addressing, static route, dynamic routing, all that, VRRP, right, backups, updates, upgrades, right? Update and upgrade, these are two different solutions, right? Update is a small update. Upgrade is basically that you have a full upgrade of the OS itself. Updates are small patches, right? And all that, and a huge number of things which we are going to see once we have the firewall up and running. So whether you're installing management server or you're installing the blades, right, what you have to do is you have to basically install Gaia first, because everything works on the top of the Gaia. Okay, so let's say we will start with management server. When you are installing management server, what will be installed first in the operating system? Gaia, because Gaia is the basic. You need to give IP address to management server. Where will you do that? You will do it Gaia. On the top of it, you will install management server, and this is a two-step process. You will see that when we install any of the thing, you will see it's a two-step process. First will be Gaia. The second step will be either management server or blade, or it will be blade, right? So what is a blade? Blade means blade software plus Gaia on the top of Gaia. What is management server? Management server is management server on the top of Gaia. You cannot avoid Gaia, right? You can't avoid Gaia. Gaia has to be basically there. Yes. Yeah, checkpoint. Yes. You can bring one chair from here. Correct? So Gaia is the base operating system of the checkpoint, right? It doesn't have any meaning. It is not. There is no short form. It's an Italian word basically, which is the name of, that they have a meaning for it. It's called mother of all. Okay, but it doesn't have any short forms like G has any short form or A has any short. There is nothing like that. Lot of other platforms also, and the Gaia is built on the top of Linux, right? So it is based on the Linux kernel. Further, you have the operating system installed on it, and on the top of the operating system, you have either the blade or the management server installed. Guys, any question up to here?
No.
Okay, so this is one aspect. The other aspect we have is that we can have it installed. This is one installation where you have one management server and multiple blades. So I don't have official documentation how many blades are supported with one management server. I didn't find it basically in the official guide and other places. So one management server can manage a huge number of blades, right? The other one you have is you have multi-domain. You have multi-domain installations. Let's go. Oh, okay. I think it was there. Okay, I'm just sending the link. Okay, so multi-domain server. Okay, multi-domain server. In multi-domain server, what will happen is, let's say in large companies, right? Very large companies. What happens is you have, let's say India has its management server, correct? One MS and multiple blades. Let's say UK also has the similar stuff. Okay, we have US also with its own blades. Sometimes it's as big as 40 blades, 50 blades. So one MS server and its blades. Let's say 40 blades under one management, correct? Then another MS server, and then you have blades for it. And then you have another MS server, you have blades for it. This is actually a CCSE syllabus. It is covered in CCSE, right? Like advanced clustering and all that. So you have multiple management servers who are managing their respective countries. In India, you have, let's say, this one. Okay, in UK, you have this one. And in US, you have this one. So in multi-domain, what will happen is you can have it installed as a multi-domain server that can also be clustered together, which will further manage these servers. Correct? What is the benefit? The benefit is you can create a global policy and apply the global policy, and you can manage all that. Otherwise, these people will be, they have to create those policies again. Let's say there is an attack happens, and you as a company, let's say I'll give an example of HP. Okay, HP sells printer, laptops, desktops, and hundreds of activities at different countries, right? They operate in almost 130 to 150 countries. They have big business, billions of dollars of business. Now these people realize that there is some new virus or some botware software, malware software has emerged, and Checkpoint has issued that create this particular ACL rule or IPS rule, which will prevent this virus spread or something to happen. So what you can do is you can create it at multi-domain server and push it to all the MS, which is these are local MS, and they further will push it to all the blades. They will be able to push it at all the blades simultaneously. They can do that, correct? So that is the purpose of your multi-domain server. Guys, can you hear me? I think most of the participants can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll just check.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So are you clear about the single domain and multi-domain? Right? Single domain, this is your course, single domain. Okay, and these are called multi-domain. Yes, in single domain, what are the things, two things I told you? Two installation types, standalone and distributed. Right? In single domain, I told you two type of installations, standalone and distributed. We will do both of them today. We will see what does standalone look like, what is this looks like. Okay, we'll go back again to the standalone and distributed one more time. So in standalone, what was the thing? What used to happen? MS server and blades were in a single solution. I'll tell you, most of the blades, most of the appliances, especially the SOHO appliances, the small business appliances, they do not generally buy two devices. They have a very limited budget. In that, they generally buy both the solutions together. So you will have a ready-made this thing ready, in which you will, in the appliance, you will have MS and blade pre-configured for you. In the, what is the benefit? Benefit is that you are basically saving some money. What is the drawback? Drawback is you are losing some amount of RAM and resources. And it's not a great idea, because if things fail, generally you will have both the things down. Okay, let me give you an example of the distributed, which will show you the benefit. In distributed, what happens is, and this is the 90% of the practices in large companies, you will have management server, which is smart console, and you will have a good number of blades.
In the distributed system, we will have centralized management, right?
Correct, centralized management. Right. So what will happen is you will have management console, management server, which is smart console, and these will be blades. Different blades will be managed using this particular solution. Now, only when you want to make any change, you will actually use this, right? Only when you are making any change, you will basically create the configuration here, and you will push to the respective blade. You can push in a single go, or you can push individually depending on what kind of policy you have created. You can create a single policy for all the blades if they have the similar configuration or they are part of the cluster or something. Okay, but if they are not part of cluster, you have to create separate policies and apply to separate firewalls, because they will be installed at different locations. In distributed, what is the benefit is that you are basically having a copy of everything you are doing saved at this. Even when your management server goes down, even if your smart console is not operational, your blades will be operational. Correct? Because you are basically doing the configuration. Okay, guys, can you mute yourself? There is a lot of background noise coming. Okay, so what is the benefit? Benefit is, one, that you have a copy of everything at a different place other than these blades, right? Generally, you can have it in also working into a kind of clustering solution, master and slave kind of relationship, so that your management server also has a backup. If the primary server goes down, the secondary, you have a backup. So even for management station, you can have your solution installed like that, correct? So that is your distributed. You will do the configuration, push it to the respective firewall, right? Any kind of changes has to be done using management server, and your management server can go down, but all your firewalls will be active at all the time, correct? Okay. So I will show you the examples of an installation today, which will be first Gaia. After that, respective, either it will be smart console or it will be a blade on the top of the Gaia, but Gaia has to be the base of it, right? So I'm going to use a VM to do that. I already have some installation. I'll remove all those. I'll delete rather these. Before I do the installation, I'll tell you the minimum requirements which are required in your, the resources which are required. So minimum resources for VM. Okay. If you have distributed, you can have 4 GB each. Sorry, 4 GB each. For blade, you can have 4 GB, and you can have for smart console, you can have, or management server, you can have 4 GB. So 4 GB each RAM. Generally, it's recommended 40 GB, but I'll say 60 GB is a good minimum hard drive required. Okay, and 2 cores are required, 2 core CPUs. 2 virtual cores, I can rather say. 1 single CPU, 2 virtual cores are required. Otherwise, your installation will not work. Minimum 3 adapters, 3 network adapters. one for management and two for minimum two interfaces inside and outside. You can have up to 8 interfaces in a VM, okay, which are supported, and logically you can create as many as you want, but up to 8 will be active at one time in the VM. This is a limit that they have. Okay, this is about distributed. If you have standalone, which means management and the blade will be in a single solution, in that case you should use minimum 8 GB. 2 core again, generally recommended 4, but 2 minimum will work, and 60 GB minimum should be required, and 3 adapters minimum. Distributed and standalone. First we will do a standalone, and then parallelly we will start a distributed to see. I will try to add 2 firewalls to a single management server. Okay, so we will go and create a new VM. After the class, I will share the image and this recorded video. So I have a Gaia image. This is the Gaia image R80.10. I'm going to install it. This is the kernel you require. Generally, you should require the 64-bit. Now, if you have less than 4 GB, it is itself is going to put it into 32-bit kind of code. I am going to name it standalone because first installation we are doing is standalone. Correct? I have a space issue, so I'm basically going to put it into Excel here. Okay. So what is the minimum hard drive I said? 60 gig. Otherwise, there will be a slowdown and you will feel a lot of issues will be there. You can choose single or virtual. It depends on your hard drive, how good you process it. I generally choose multiple. Then go here. What is the RAM we discussed? Minimum in distributed, sorry, standalone 8 GB. How many CPUs? 2, correct? And how many adapters? Use bridge always and go here and do. And go here again and do bridge again. Okay, bridge again. 3 adapters minimum. If you want to add one more is absolutely fine. You can add up to 8. So that's absolutely okay. We have 4 interfaces. I'll just go and check again. 8 GB of RAM, 2 minimum virtual CPUs, 4 physical interfaces, 4 adapters, all in the bridge mode right now. Okay, image is already selected and I'm installing it in the D drive. So this is a standalone installation I'm doing. Let's see what happens and how does it start. So this, it says install Gaia. You see that it's asking us to install Gaia right now. Correct? So the base operating system is going to be Gaia. Okay, what are the materials I'll provide you? So this is the syllabus, right? These are all the labs and the theory being covered. Material, I'll tell you what is that. Official curriculum book plus lab guide. I'll have all videos recorded and image, right? The image to install it and all that will be basically there. So these are the 3 things which you will be getting with this class.
What is the duration of it?
Generally, it goes around 6 Sundays or something like that. 6 weekends. 4 hours, generally 4 hours each. Do you want to, so this process will install the checkpoint Gaia R8010 operating system and associated application, say okay. What language? US, and This is about the hard drive. Your disk size is 59 GB. It will ask me to set up the password for admin. The username is admin as it is visible there. It is checking all the interfaces. How many interfaces you have? All are up. Good. Is asking me to set up the management IP of the checkpoint. Okay. So I'll just say something, maybe 99. Do you want to go and continue with it? It is going to format that portion of hard drive. I am okay with that. So right now what is being installed is Gaia. Once the Gaia installation is done, it will ask me, do you want to install management server, or do you want to install Blade, or do you want to install both? Correct? So that is where the process will basically start. Generally, this doesn't take much time. The other process will be basically taking around 10 to 15 minutes, but this should be less than 5 minutes.
Zoom पे.
So package installation, you can see the items being installed. It's installing SSH and other basic things. As I said, the Gaia operate IPv4 network stack. It will have routing protocols also. It will have all VRRP and other things also. So anything that is required in a basic operating system, it will be installing that. And then the web portal software. Guys, can you mute yourself, please? Okay, now once this is done, we will get a message on the screen that the rest of the installation you can do using the web interface. Graphical interface. Now you see that what's happening. Checkpoint software blades are being installed. Sorry, copied, not installed. This is the difference. What was happening in Gaia was installation, but what is happening here is copying. Correct? Because installation is we may or may not make it a blade. It is our choice. See, still I have a choice. Although I've given the name of the machine as standalone, I still have a choice. Do I want to make it only management server, or both, or only blade? Right? Because that option we get after the Gaia is installed. The base operating system is installed. So right now it is copying management server and it is also copying the blade software, but it is copying, it's not installing. Okay, now here it says your installation of Gaia is complete. Now you can go to this particular IP and do HTTPS, because rest of the thing will not happen on CLI, it will happen in graphical. So your secure Linux is installed. On the top of secure Linux, Gaia is installed. On the top of the Gaia, it will give us option what is that you want to install. Okay, so let's see how what's basically happening. The first step is secure Linux. The second step on the second layer on the top of it is Gaia. The third thing you have is your choice. So let's say here, this is secure Linux shell. After that, you have Gaia. On the top of it, you have three choices, right? Either Blade or Smart Console, Management Server, or both. Okay. You do have another option of installing or multi-domain manager. You have four choices rather. You have 4 choices here. Which part you are talking about? Guys, when you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. There's no problem with that. The top layer, okay, okay. So basically what happens here is that you have secure Linux, the first step. On the top of it, it's Gaia operating system. On the top of it, we can have a blade, the firewall itself, or the management server, right? Both blade plus management server, which is called the standalone installation. If you say both, right, it will be called standalone. Or you have multi-domain manager, which we just discussed, basically, which can manage multiple distributed installations, right? Guys, somebody's mic is, I'm not sure who's that.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Rizwan, your mic.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, can you please mute yourself?
No, sir. I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is it the 3-layer architecture for the checkpoint? This one, which you are explaining now?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
दिल्ली पुलिस में सुगंधला
So you have first secure Linux being installed because that will secure the Gaia operating system. On the top of the Gaia, you have the third layer, which is basically you will choose either you can install it as a blade or a smart console or both or multi-domain manager, but that has to be secure using these 2 base components.
Okay. No, my question is it the 3-layer? It is called 3-layer architecture for the checkpoint.
No, it is not called anything basically. They don't have it explained as a multi-layer. They have it as that you generally install Gaia. I'm just explaining the Gaia is installed on the top of the secure Linux. They don't have any official layered name for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so you have secure Linux Gaia on the top of it. This we will see if we have anything here. So I'll do HTTPS to the given address, which is basically 99. Here it is. And I will use admin and the password the firewall asked me to at the time of installation. Now this is the second step it is asking me. It says RAT first time configuration. Gaia is done. Now what is that we're installing? We will see what is that we are installing, right? Because right now also not confirm what is that we are installing. So continue with RAT configuration. Cool. Management IP, which we configured, and I'm using that right now. Which interface is being used for management and which is used for other things? What is the host name of this firewall? If you want to go to internet right now, you can give your DNS IPs also 4.2.2.8.8.8. If you have proxy in your company, you can use proxy. Then the time, it is basically picking up the right time, so I don't need to give the time because it has picked up right time from my machine, correct? Or from the VM. Now here it's asking me what is that you want to install. Do you want to install Blade or security management software or multi-domain manager? Correct? So here we want to install standalone. So here now again is asking me, do you want to install only the Blade, only the management, or both? Correct? What is our installation right now? Standalone. What is standalone means? Both together. So I will choose a gateway and management station together. What if it was standalone? I will only be opting for just one, right? So I'll just say this. The other thing is asking me, is it going to be part of cluster? If you have clustering installed and it is, you want to enable clustering, you can click on this option, right? Or any time when you have your, the company has network running, you can convert any device to cluster anytime. but you cannot convert a standalone to cluster. Remember that. Standalone and clustering is not supported, right? Only the distributed mode supports clustering. Clustering is not supported in standalone installations. So right now I'm doing standalone.
I have a question here. Like, if the device, if we have a standalone device, can we add that device later into the cluster?
No, the device will not become part of the cluster. Later it will create problem.
Okay.
So just I have a question about the cluster. Only we use for the security management or for security gateway too?
So that's a nice question. Generally it is used for the blades. It's only for the blades.
Okay, thank you.
But here is a very interesting thing. Define security management as, so here if you are choosing this, you have only, see the clustering is disabled, right? The clustering is disabled. What is left is here is that, is it the first security management smart console and as a primary, or are you installing it as a secondary also? Okay, so let me explain this in the diagram here. We have two things. You can have your management server as primary and secondary, correct? But if you see that when I click on primary and secondary, what happened? The clustering is disabled. That means clustering is not there for management server. Clustering has nothing to do with management server. Correct? Why clustering has nothing to do with management server? I'll explain. So here it is. Let's say if I have, so what are the cases where you use clustering? Let's say you have one checkpoint firewall, you have second checkpoint firewall. In clustering, what happens is generally you generally combine them as one single solution to the underlying user. So let's say there you have the users. So users will not come to know these are two different devices. They will understand it's a single cluster and they will basically pass on the traffic to cluster. The cluster could be active or active standby. But clustering is basically associated with the data interfaces. That means you are passing the data. So outside interface will be one cluster, inside will be part of one cluster, and they will either have same address or different address with a virtual IP, depending on what is that you are implementing, right? BRRP, HSRP, GLBP type. Now, what happens in this is that clustering is a data forwarding concept. Clustering is for data forwarding, redundancy.
Okay, do you mean similar to HA, high availability?
That's right. This is high availability only. Okay, it's high availability itself. The second thing we have here is, right, and in this you have active and active standby. The second concept we have is, what about management servers? Now you see that management servers generally have one interface. They do not have three interfaces. In a management server, there is nothing called inside and outside. Because management servers are not doing data forwarding and data traffic and all that. They are used for management. They are not blades. Correct? So they will be generally primary and secondary. So that's the reason you see here, when I'm clicking that I will make it management server, the clustering option is disabled because clustering is not for management server. Right? Similarly, I will remove this. If you see that I click on security gateway, it is only picking clustering, and primary and secondary is disabled because primary and secondary concept is not for gateways. What is the concept for gateways? Clustering. Correct. It's not possible to have high availability in the standalone mode. Correct. That is absolute. Okay. So you see that the point here, because both the options were selected, it was giving me both these options here. Correct. But if I say security gateway, you see the concept is clearly meant for only the gateways. And if I just click on this, then the concept is made for only primary and secondary for the security management. If the primary server is down, the secondary server will be managed.
Excuse me, under the cluster HL, I think there is a VRRP cluster.
Yes.
Could you give us a bit of explanation of that?
No, this is not the right time for VRRP clustering. There is a topic of clustering. There is a complete chapter on clustering, which we will be doing probably in 6th class. So at that time, I will be discussing about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right now the protocol being used for this, see, this is the basic installation. I'm just teaching the super basic installation of the checkpoint in the 1st class. Correct. So guys, are we clear about it? Security gateway has a clustering, doesn't have a primary and secondary because that is for management server. Management server generally has one IP address. Correct. What I'll do is, although I've named it like that, let me do this one. Okay, I'm going to basically keep it as security management server, not as standalone. Okay, and then we will install another one as gateway. So I'll just say security management. Although it's a good idea because we have created 4 interfaces, let's do that as together. Okay, I'll just, who can manage it? You can give the list of those guys, or you can do it later. And I'm going to install both the options here. Security gateway and security management, because we have named it as standalone. I'll do it. Parallelly, I'm going to install another checkpoint firewall here as standalone. So I'll just go here, pick the same image, same kernel, and I'll say this, sorry, this is going to be distributed, or I'll say just blade 1. Where do you want to keep it? I want to keep it in the D drive, somewhere down here, probably Zoom recording or somewhere. How much is, I said 60 GB. It's just a blade, so 4 GB is enough, correct? And I need 3 adapter because it is a blade. So minimum 3 or 4 adapters I can choose. I'll pick up one more. Okay, I'll got this. 3 interfaces done. Processors, minimum 2 processors. Okay, blade, I will start the installation right now, and the other installation is also going on. Also, you will see that this wizard and all that will not come in Chrome and any other web browser. You have to use specifically Internet Explorer only. So if you try to do this installation, it will not happen in any other browser. It will only happen in Internet Explorer. Yes, so management server for this particular blade will be the same, the distributed one, the standalone one. So I'll tell you what is that we have done. We have first bundle, which is standalone, which is a combination of, inside it, you have a combination of both MS and blade. What is that we named it? We named it standalone. And this is called standalone installation, correct? And if the other installation that I have right now going on, that is going to be just a blade. This is going to be just a blade 1. So this MS will be basically responsible for managing this and managing this.
So blades and integrate.
Absolutely. So these blades, no matter how many blades you basically create, you can have a huge number of blades in the future. They will all be managed using this particular solution. Okay, so he can manage this blade and he can also manage this blade. But can they be part of cluster? Can you in the future, can you put them as cluster? No, you can't. Standalone doesn't support clustering. It will not have option of enabling clustering. You will see the clustering option. it will not have the option enabled for it. I will show you basically once the installation is done. I'll show you. Okay, this is, I think we will start it again. Okay, we'll do. So this installation will start parallelly. Yeah, we can use the same standalone for the distributed blades if of the future. Yes, we can do that. This is exactly what we are doing. We have standalone installation, but in the future, I'm adding another blade here, and we will be able to see this blade under the standalone manager. It is not possible to have HA in standalone because you will not get that option when you have the installation completed. You will see that this option will not be available in the standalone mode. The option itself is disabled. Okay, let's see what is the progress. Okay, so this is done. Now let me show you the connectivity and the other things that we should have. So in our first installation, which is basically a management server and blade put together in a single solution, correct? The management IP is actually shared because they are both two different things on a single VM, correct? So they do not have two management IPs. What do they have? They have one management IP for it, correct? So they will have one management IP being shared. What is the management IP that we are using? So 172.16.0.99. But if I'm going to have any further blade in the future, all those blades will have their own management IP. Correct? But for my smart console and management, because I'm sharing two VMs in a single body in a standalone installation, I'm sharing two different VMs being put together, or two operating systems put together in a single machine or single appliance. I will have single management IP for these two. Correct? And similarly, if I go to the distributed here, I will have these will be managed using this guy. They all will be managed using the MS component here. Right? Management server, which is smart console, which used to be smart dashboard. Let's see what is the status now if we have this thing ready. You see that when I did this first time, what came? The wizard came that install this thing. Now, when I'm doing it for the second time, what came? The whole configuration thing came. This is which operating system it is. Here on the top, you see Gaia. So you will come to know what is Gaia and what is smart console. Again, as I said, the Gaia is the base operating system for configuring all the routing protocols like RIP, EIGRP, BGP, multicasting, creating user who will manage various things, VRRP or clustering, correct? Licensing and upgrade and updates, backups and everything else is all the properties of Gaia. You cannot do any of these activities using smart console. Yes, we can basically convert a standalone to the distributed. Okay, but we will only have it as blade, then there will be issues related to that. So this is, you see that always wherever you're sitting on the right hand side, you will come to know, is it a Gaia or it is a standalone operating system. Correct? Now let me see how to install the Smart Console. On the top of it, you see there is a Smart Console software. You download it in your machine, it's an exe file, and install it. Correct? I have it installed. So what I'll do is I will just have the installed component here. This is how it looks like. Correct? What is my IP address here? 99. And admin and the password that I said. I will do log into this. Also, you see that these are interfaces, ARP, DHCP server, static routes, and all that. We will see all those things here. Whatever you can do here, remember that whatever can be done from here cannot be done using Smart Console, and whatever can be done at Smart Console cannot be done at here. I'm going to actually put it all into the documentation. So generally the first time it takes time. Okay, so let's give it 5 minutes for this to come back. This to access this in the Smart Console, it takes generally first time it takes time. Okay, so let's see what can be done in Smart Console and what can be done in a Gaia. This is Gaia, this is Smart Console. So Gaia, you can do IP interface configuration, routing protocols, BGP, OSPF, RIP, EIGRP, right? Kind of thing, whatever protocols available, multicasting, PIM and all that, PRRP, clustering, enable or other things. Basically, these are enablement of the features. Okay, backup, license, etc. Users who can manage, user roles, etc. What is that you can manage in Smart Console? Anything, any blade related activity, real UTM software, all the blades will be only managed in Smart Console. Now, can you manage any of these features in Gaia? No. Can you manage any of these features in Smart Console? No. These are completely two separate things. So, because this is a secure operating system installation on the top of Linux, on the top of it, you have installed these components here, which will be managed using this management software. You cannot manage these using Gaia. No, cannot be managed. And the Gaia cannot manage any of these features. Correct? Because these are two different functionalities. These are completely logical software operation related stuff. This is operating system related features. These are all operating system related features. These are firewall related stuff.
So just a question has come up about if, for example, if I have 5 firewalls, I want to configure a routing protocol on those. So I have to one by one log in and configure them, or
you have to go one by one and do individual configuration of those using the Gaia of individual firewalls. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so that's the difference between Smart Console and Gaia.
Sir, one question here. In that, if you have the management server, then you can configure through the management server, right? You no need to log into all devices one by one, right?
No, he asked something else. He asked me about routing protocols.
No, the same routing protocol also you can log in through the management server, right?
It
Or
doesn't have.
need to log in.
This is what I was telling you, that it doesn't have that function. Smart console. Let's look at this slide. Smart console
Yeah.
management server is, this is management server. It doesn't have a functionality except these features.
Okay.
The job of the smart console is to manage blades, and the job of Gaia is to manage the OS.
Okay.
Right? So for all the routing protocol, IP interface, and properties of that, all that has to be done using Gaia, because that's the OS for it. These blades have specific function. See, this, he will manage firewall rules, VPN rules, IPsec rules, netting rules, IPS signature installations and all that. This software is not configured or designed to manage or understand the base layer properties, because there is a dedicated operating system for it. Right? And that's the reason I showed you here. See, how will you manage anything smart console related? Do you have any firewall rule tab here?
No, sir. No.
Because this is not designed. We understand that this is not designed in that particular way. This is designed for the local function. You can see the properties of it. Like here on the right hand side, you can see which blade is passing how much traffic. Because at network layer, you need to see how much, which blades are enabled and how much traffic, what is the throughput, what is the packet rate, what are the throughput, all that you can see at this. But that is network related property. But can you configure a firewall or IPS or anything from here? No, there is a dedicated software for that. Correct?
Yes. Got it, sir. Thank you.
No problem. Indication server, indication failed. So let's go here to see. Let's go. We want to install it. Let's do this installation and then we'll go back and check the problem there. This is, I'm installing the standalone, the distributed blade. So till Gaia, there is no difference. Again, Gaia will take its same properties. I'll give this IP 172.16.0.98 maybe. That's okay. You want to continue? Yes. So installation starts. I'll go back to this to see what is the problem with this. Standalone is not allowing me. Maybe my username password is, something is wrong with it. So, okay, my caps lock was on. Okay, so I see only one blade here. If it was distributed, there will be two blades. One for management, other for the blade itself. But right now, only one blade I have. And this is the firewall that I have. I will click on the properties of it. Right now, only firewall is enabled. No other feature, no other blade is enabled in this particular blade. In this gateway, no other feature is enabled. Correct? And if I look at interfaces also, the interfaces are, only one interface is there, management interface, nothing else is there. The other features are all disabled at this time. For this firewall, I can create a rule. There is a default rule here. By default, the rule is to deny all the traffic. I'll say accept it for the timing. Okay, and I'll give you a brief about all the interface thing here. So this is how your smart console looks like. Again, I said that always look at right hand side to see where are you sitting. You're sitting in smart console right now. Now you see that here there is no tab whatsoever here to configure routing protocol, BGP, OSPF, because this software is not designed for that. It is designed to give you or to control your firewall function, IPS function, threat detection functions and all that. Correct? This is basically to manage the UTM solution and not the Gaia OS. Gaia OS is his responsibility to configure the basic features. Correct? So we go to the gateways, and here I can see if I have more gateways, I will be able to see them. I have a 15 2 weeks license is basically available. This is the CPU utilization. Yes, it is very different from R77, completely different. Rather, they used to have different blades visible here. No more those blades are here. Okay, and there is something called unified rules or unified security policy, which is basically here. In this, you can have all policies at a single place. This
so one rule is there.
Sorry?
By default, one rule is there, cleanup rule. What do you mean by cleanup rule, sir?
Cleanup rule is basically the last rule of the firewall or default rule of the firewall, which basically denies everything. It's like permit what you want to permit and deny all at the end of it. See, I will come to these topics. These are not basically the topics which is basically you can start from anywhere. This is a one-day task to basically explain all the rules and the firewall policies, because once we come to firewall, we will actually have to do a lot of stuff. I'm just giving a brief overview of all the functionalities, all the interface itself. What does the interface look like? What are the features here? Okay. Then we will get into the individual things like firewall. At that time, we will see the explicit rule, implied rules. So here we have implied rules. I will explain what are implied rules, what are default implied rules, and what are the things that you can configure all that. Correct? So let's look at it, the interface here. You have objects here, you can create object, or on the right hand side, you have object, you can create objects from here. Correct? You have objects on the top of it, or you have objects on the right hand side. You can choose to create objects the way you, wherever you want to create. These objects will be further used in different parts of policies. Right? These are like creating ACL or network objects. You might have created host objects or network ACLs and all that. You can create all those stuff here. You can create VPN, remote VPN or site-to-site VPN, and you can have different stuff here. Then we have gateways and server. Here, all your blades will be visible. All your management stations will be visible to you. You can see the CPU utilization of that, plus the RAM and other things here. What is the percentage of your resources being used? You can also see your license. What licenses you have, up to what time those licenses are active. Is it a trial license for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or is it a basically full-fledged license that you have? When you install it, you have all licenses available to you as a trial for, I believe, 15 days or so. Okay. So this is your gateway, where you can see that if you click on any of the gateway, you have a choice to enable any of the feature that you want to enable. Okay. A gateway means a physical appliance, right? Or a VM. Right now we are using a VM, and you have a choice here to enable any of the features that you want to. One by one, when we start a chapter, we will, let's say when we do a chapter of mobile access, we will see mobile access. We'll enable the feature. Correct? If I click on it right now, it will ask me to configure it. If I enable the feature, it will, so here it is. It's asking me, you want to enable SSL VPN or IPsec VPN, what platforms you want to use, it will start configuration. Similarly, I touch on anything, it will ask me to configure that function. So these are actually full chapters in their self. Here you have all the basic properties. If you have advanced NAT going on or HTTPS inspection going on, and all other stuff is basically here. Then you have security policy. You have two kind of policy: firewall policies or IPS policy, threat prevention policies. Okay. So firewall policy, under firewall policy, you can edit, and you have different policies here, which you can go and you can edit the layer. In firewall, you have application layer URL filtering, content awareness, and mobile access. under firewall. So 4 blades are there under firewall. Okay. Rest of the other blades are there under the threat prevention. So when you go under the threat prevention, you see these blades here. Okay, you can edit and you can see what are the blades. So IPS, anti-bot, antivirus, threat emulation, threat extraction, all these blades are available under threat prevention. Let me see, some question is there. I mean the management services available next to network security services. That is correct. Absolutely right. Right. So you see that 6 blades, 7 blades are here, plus 4 blades are there in the firewall, 10 blades. Rest of the other blades like ipsec, VPN and everything else are there under the gateway. You have to enable those features and then you can do that. Right. So 10 blades are there in these policies. You can have up to 10 blades here. Okay. Some of the policies still work under the old dashboard option. If you go here, you will see still smart dashboard is built into it. If I go to the blades here, you will see which blades will still work under smart dashboard. Like DLP will work under smart dashboard. Mobile access will work under smart dashboard. Anti-spam will work under smart dashboard. HTTPS inspection will work under smart dashboard. Okay, so smart dashboard, as I said, was the old in R77 and before. We used to have something called smart dashboard, and that used to manage. So some of the functionality still has not moved completely to smart console. Okay, but some of the features they have moved it now, like mobile access we just saw has now been moved to the smart console as well. It's there in smart console as well. But if you click here, smart dashboard will pop up. So smart console has smart dashboard software installed in it. You don't need to install smart dashboard again. It is built into the smart console software. Okay, so you can basically use it here. It's a little complicated stuff. This was R77. At that time, we used to have it. We don't need to do it. We have an option now which says that do you want to configure even mobile access using the latest policy? So once you configure here, you go back to I have not turned on those interfaces, so mobile access option will not be visible here because I have not enabled the feature. Once I enable, it will give me an option that you can still move your policy from smart dashboard to smart console. Okay, the second interface we discussed, there are 2 things here, rather 3, but the firewalls are all firewall policies. 4 different policies are there under policy. Netting is there just under that. You can create your NAT, manual NAT or static NAT or PAT or whatever rules you want to create is available here. Policy under threat prevention, what is that? That is basically your IPS and all those policies. You can create exceptions and there you have the global policy called this is shared policy, right? It's the geo policy, which means you can block traffic, outright traffic from any of the country. So sitting there, you can block outright any country's traffic you don't want. You can straight away block it, or you can monitor it. If you can just want to monitor it, that's fine. Or you can basically block it, or you can create an exception also. Okay. These are default inspections things. I will talk about it once I actually I'm done with these features here, basic features. Logging and monitoring whatever is happening in your firewall can be basically seen from here, or you can create your queries and you can further go to your threat prevention or access policies if you have any firewall rule hitting, or you can basically create any of the IPS blade, anti-bot and all that. So this is for your logging and monitoring. Okay, then you have management and settings, which is basically your all the blades, your basic which user can do what. Right now admin is logged in and admin is configuring super user. You can create more users, what permissions they have, if you create a user for read only and all those things, what are the blades you have, and their each blade internal configuration you want to do, you can basically do that. Okay, how many sessions? Right now only admin is logged in. If you are installing new versions and other things, if you have policy and you created multiple versions of the policies, you will be able to see it. You can also go to CLI using the command line. You can see what are the new features in this operating system. So these are, it will tell you what are the new features into R80.10. You can click on it. It's more like a basic idea. It will tell you what are the changes and what are the other things you can basically run from different places. If you want to run any script and all that. Okay, so this is basically using what's new, CLI. You can run your scripts from here and install the policy. You can install the policy, which means when you create a thing, you need to push it to the gateways, correct? So I will push first policy of ours, security policy. First policy I'm going to push to our firewall. And I will say, right now, see that it's asking me, is it access control or threat prevention? I do not have threat prevention. I'm just saying access control, save it. What is my gateway? It's a standalone. It has gateway and management server both. So I'm calling it both. So policy is being pushed to the blade right now. Whatever policy we have, what is the policy? This we have a ACL which permits everything. First time it will take some time by when it's pushing the objects in a new firewall.
So your question, first we have to publish the policy and then install the policy, or is that okay?
I'm coming to that. So basically you have two options. You publish the policy. When you publish the policy, you are basically saving the policy in the management server. Okay. And generally you save it and you install it. But if you click on install, it actually publishes, saves in the one copy saved in management server, and it installs in the gateway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you click on publish, as you see the option Control S, right, which means save. But if you install the policy, which means save the one copy into management server and install it in the blade. Okay, so you will be able to see your changes. If you want to see what are your session creation, let's say I'll say user one kind of thing. You can give the what are the changes you have made. You can basically in each session, whatever change you make, you can put it here. It will work as a notepad. Each time the policy is saved, it will be, the changes will also be possible, or you will be able to see those changes. Correct? Each time the policy is saved, the revision copy of that is saved. So you will come to know that what time, what changes were made. 3 changes published by admin and all those things are basically here. Guys, any question about it? This is probably the easiest interface possible to configure such a huge amount of features. There are 16 total blades, right? Total 15 plus the management server is also known as blade. And you see that most of it, basically 10 blades can be configured using one single tab. This is really amazing stuff. At one time, what used to happen is you have to go on the top to each blade and do the configuration. That means you have to remember the configuration at different places, but here you can do at single place. Okay, we will see now. We'll go back. We have to add one more blade. This installation is complete. Okay, before that, I go somewhere else. I'll show you the clustering thing. What was the problem with the clustering that I was telling you? Okay, you see that there is no option for clustering here in a standalone thing, right? Do you see any clustering option? I will just show you the similar stuff on the other gateway, and you will see that on this gateway, when I go there, you will see there will be option available to convert it into cluster. Because there is no option to convert it into cluster, I cannot do anything. Okay, but if I go to a distributed gateway and I do the similar command, there will be option available to convert it into cluster. So that is the reason a standalone cannot be part of a cluster. Standalone, you have to convert it to distributed, and then you can make it part of cluster. That can be done. I'll open one more tab. We need to install the second guy, but that will be just as a distributed. So I'll just go here, 0.98, and we'll go here. So this is going to be HTTPS. Okay, it's asking me the same options again, but this time I'm going to pick up a different option. Last time I had security management and gateway both together. This time what I'm doing, I'm just picking gateway. Correct? When I pick up this option, it will ask me a password. It did not ask me this password last time, if you remember. Why? Because the gateway and the management server were installed on the same firewall, same VM, right? But now this password is required because I need to connect this gateway to the management server, smart console. So this password during the installation, what I have configured, I need to remember that password, and I need to put that password into, and this is an activation key, absolutely. Okay, once this is going on, I'll go back to this place here and we'll go back to gateway. Some couple of more options I have to show you. So the first option that you have is when you add a new gateway, you have an option to configure a new gateway. Okay. So once our gateway is ready, we can have it as this, or you can add a cluster. If you are adding a cluster, you can add a cluster here, and you can basically see all that. Different options will be there, and you can run your scripts here. You can run one time, or you can create all the scripts in the future. You can open your SSH access to your device. Okay, let me give you this here. This is my SSH access. Show configuration. I can see this whole configuration as this. If I want to set something, I can say set, but it works on set based commands. If you have configured Juniper and some other devices, they will work on set based stuff. Set routing protocol, set interface, and all that can be basically set interface. Name it, right? ETH0. I want to put something, and then I can say have options for other interfaces. Here are the other options: IPv4 address, IPv6 address, and all those things can be done. Also, now because it doesn't give me the clean option, I will do SSH from my machine. 172.16.0.99. Okay. Show configuration, and we can see that all these commands are set based commands. You can pick up any interface. The other interfaces are not yet configured. You can configure using CLI, but the best option is always Gaia. It's much easier to do it there. You can configure set route. You can configure IPv6 addresses. Everything is possible. Okay. Now this is your base shell. After that, you have something called expert mode. You can set up your expert mode. So set expert password and say some password. Okay. It says that you have another thing open. So first you unlock it. Okay, if I say expert and I give the password of expert mode, this is where the real checkpoint operating system starts, and you will have very different Linux based commands, and all those things will be basically visible to you. I think cpconfig still works here, and you can have all your VPN terminal related stuff, etc. can be done here. So you can all do your directory installation and other things. If you want to modify any file, you want to go deep into the operating system and want to configure anything, you can basically do it. Otherwise, generally all the tools are available here, and you can check here also. So let's say I want to check if these firewalls are into this or not. So I want to check CP checkpoint firewall HA high availability probe. What are the roles? Because high clustering is not enabled, roles are not there. So a lot of commands are basically available in the basic mode, but these are for monitoring. Show configuration, show interface, all those commands are monitoring command. CP config, this CP HA probe, all these are monitoring commands. If you want to do anything complex, you have to go to expert mode, which will impact the configuration. Let's say the second thing I can say is this base operating stuff, all that that you have at this shell is all monitoring, and whatever you want to do at expert mode is smart console stuff. So smart console, if you want to do using CLI, is available in expert mode. Gaia, whatever you want to do is available in base mode. Correct? All Gaia stuff can be done using the set commands here. You can use set commands and you see what are the set commands. These are the set commands, BGP, OSPF, everything can be basically done using set commands. But you want to do anything related to firewall and other related stuff using CLI, then expert mode is basically smart console mode. You can call it like that. Okay, let's see our other firewall if it has come or not. We'll go to this 98. I think installation is done. I'll just look at it again. So installation is completed, and that's the reason we are here. Otherwise, the wizard will come. Now, how do I connect other firewall here? I am installing new gateway. So I'll go to this gateway. I'll name it Blade 1, although you can name it here. 172.16.0.98. Sorry, what kind of firewall it is? Is it some appliance model or is it a VM? So it's a VM. So open server. Otherwise, you have to tell what appliance it is, what physical appliance it is. Okay. Now this is the place where it is going to ask me that password, one-time password. Remember that in the distributed, it asked me a password. So I'll say that password here. Trust is not established yet because the password has to be matched. Okay, now because the password is there, the trust of this is enabled and the trust is established. Now I should have two gateways. Correct? On the top I have two gateways, Blade 1 and the standalone. Correct? So I have Blade 1 and the other firewall. Two firewalls are basically available with one management station. Now I will show you. We will go to other firewall. I'm just going to go to this firewall and we will do SSH. Okay. 172.16.0.98. I'll SSH to this. I will increase the font size. We'll say cp config. You see that there is an option here. I'm going to do side by side. cp checkpoint config. Okay, you see the option on both sides, and you will see that the standalone doesn't have option for clustering, but here there is an option in the distributed. There is an option for clustering, enabling the clustering. That is the problem. That's the reason in standalone the clustering is not allowed, and in distributed only you can go to the type it into Google. You will find checkpoint articles clearly telling standalone mode doesn't support clustering. It has to be in the distributed mode. Also in the companies, in all the big companies, you will have distributed mode because that's much safe. You will have clustering available, right? So that is the difference between both. Okay, so it doesn't have that option and it has that option basically. Okay, now let's go back to our firewall here. There was something related to trust. There is something related to the gateway called trust established. What is this trust? The trust is that password, right? During installation, we set up a password. If the password matches, I trust the gateway because I know the secret password of that guy. That means the same admin has set up that gateway. Otherwise, some other gateway can configure into our network if there is no trust process, and then it can create problem. Correct? That is one. The second thing, the beauty of this trust is this is called secure internal communication, SIG. Okay. The purpose of this SIG is that whatever communication I have further with this gateway is all going to be encrypted. Okay, I am going to issue certain certificates to this guy. That certificate that we are basically talking about at the time of SSH, that was the certificate basically. Okay, that's a certificate, or we can see that certificate, this thing here. It's not showing me here. Here it is. Okay, so we can see that certificate being issued. We have trust established. That's the reason now management server can push the configuration to this guy, and this blade has to trust the management server now. Trust is a two-way process, right? It's a two-way process. So the management server can do all the communication with this particular. All these components, blades will trust the management server, this management server, smart console. Right? You can, if in any case your trust is broken, you have an option to re-establish your trust. You can reset your SIG. You can reset your SIG here. Correct? But again, this option is only available in here. You do not have this option in standalone. Why? Because the smart console and gateway are not two things. So there is no question of trust. See, when you are installed in the single box, where is the question of trust? The question of trust only arises when you have a different device. If I'm installed in single box, single VM, right, the gateway and the management server, there is no question of trust. So they have not given you that option here that you can reset your SIG. Because you are server, how can you reset your SIG? You are server yourself. Sir, this has to be reset. I need to ask you the communication again when I'm a different gateway. Correct? So that is the difference between distributed and the standalone mode here. Guys, any question, any doubt on these two things, all the SIG related stuff and all that? Now I'll go back.
No, sir, it's clear.
Okay. Now I'll go back here. Okay. Go to preference, global properties, and you will see these are the properties of a firewall. Generally, ICMP is not allowed. You cannot ping any gateway by default. These are by default rules which are above the ACL. In the firewall policy, you will create ACLs, right? That is, those ACLs are generally right through the firewall, not to the firewall, right? But you see that by default, I was able to telnet and SSH. Sorry, I was able to SSH to the firewall, right? Have I configured any rule for that on any of the gateway? But I am able to SSH to both the gateways because the default rule of which is called implicit rule allows that communication, which is basically here by default. But ICMP was not there. Okay. So these rules are hidden rules. These are stealth rules which are applied before the ACL. These are generally the first rule or before the last rule. These rules are basically available. Okay, they are all hidden from the firewall rules. You will not be able to see them under the firewall rules. Okay, but you can change the rule anytime. You can basically change it. You can disable it here. These are to the firewall. Most of the time it is to the firewall, not through the firewall. Okay, all these rules are basically, and these are, you see that these rules are little advanced. You have VPN, authentication, remote access, and all that. If I configure the similar stuff from the main gateway, you will not be able to see that. The second option you have is inspection setting. This is important. If you guys have done ASA, at the end of ASA, you have by default some policies, right? Inspect ICMP, inspect SIP. Have you seen that when you do show run? Correct. All those policies are default policies which tells you what to check, what not to check by default, which means what is to be inspected and what not to be inspected, and if to be inspected, what to be dropped and what not to be dropped. Checkpoint Firewall has these rules by default enabled for you, or these rules are available for you. Some of the rules are active, a lot of rules are inactive, but you can choose to have. These rules are generally for protocols which are which do not work on a single port. Okay, so let me explain you what is that. So these firewalls are generally known as stateful firewalls. All new firewalls these days are stateful firewalls. Stateful firewalls, what happens is a state table is created for each connection passing through the firewall. So let's say this is a firewall. So any inside user who's going, if you have a rule for him to go from inside to outside, he will be able to come back on the inside. Okay. So what happens is this rule applies to all the traffic which uses single destination port. Let's say you are telnetting to the outside world. Absolutely fine. I have no problem with that. The stateful rule understand the user, there is a user one who went to telnet to some property. Let me put it as some IP address as 201.1.1. This user did telnet to this particular IP on port number 23. I'm fine with it because he comes back on the same port he went and the traffic comes back. This is now the destination and that becomes source, and the destination is the port he was using as a source. Correct? What if this communication was FTP? FTP goes on 21 and comes on 20 because one is used for communication and the other is used for data channel. Now the firewalls get confused with this. This was a problem 20 years back, not anymore, correct? But all those applications, I'll give you a lot of applications like these, H323, MGCP, right? All these video over applications, voice over IP applications or video over IP applications use one channel or two channels, one for reliability, one for audio, two for video, and different ports, and those ports are also random. Firewall generally drops these applications. It used to drop. These days, what happens is all firewall vendors are smart. They have found ways of checking these rules and allowing them back up by tracking these rules. It's called inspection. That means the firewall has the capability to inspect dynamic protocols. Static protocols are those which are using one port for all the communication, for the data and the communication. Dynamic ports are those which are ports are used, which are basically used for one port for communication, one for data channel like FTP, H323, SIP, and all those MGCP and all that. So for that, these protocols are by default. You see that MGCP, SCCP, Skinny, SIP, all these protocols. Checkpoint has, and the TCP/IP, various TCP/IP malicious intent traffic is by default there. It's all active and the action is set to drop it. So by default, firewall has a huge amount of functionalities ready, inspecting the traffic even before you have not enabled a single rule here. It is still fine with it because all those hidden rules are active right now. Correct? So all those rules are active at this time, guys.
They will not like a Pentecostal guy. Please,
guys, can you please mute yourself? There is a background noise coming from somewhere.
So just a quick question about the global global properties, and then from there, if I change any accept ICMP request, and that's applied on all the blades or only on the management side?
No, I actually went to the individual blade to do that. Okay, I went to the individual blade to do that. You can change it for individual blades. You can go to the blade and his individual properties also can be changed.
Can you show me, please? How can I do that?
Yes. So you can go to inspection settings and you can basically change and you can apply to which gateway you want to apply. Create your policy and apply to this blade, whatever blade you want to apply.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not talking about this side. I'm a bit on the. If you go to the upper right left corner, and from there, if you go to the global properties, not that one, and close this windows, please.
So this is the place. This is the place to make changes to the blades and the policies here. This is the place. This is the place I showed you all the policies of MGCP and all this stuff is there. So you have your,
okay.
Then you can create your profile in that you choose your individual policies. Okay. Let's say Vikas policy, and you can apply your Vikas policy to your blade. Under Vikas policy, you want to make any change, you can make any change under Vikas policy and apply to your the gateway that you want to apply.
Okay.
Okay, now I have 3 policies. It should basically show me the assigned policy, edit, and here I have Vikas policy. You see that? So I am changing a default policy to Vikas policy. Vikas policy, further under Vikas policy, you can make any changes. You can disable anything, any of the blade. You can activate any of the properties of those protocols, etc. Okay, so the basics. Any question on this, guys? The next section will have, the next class that we have will have more details. This is more like a demo. There are a lot of people here for the demo. In this, we are going to have a discussion on those policies that we just discussed, plus unified policies here we will create under, and the netting. These 2 things will be there. I generally don't take breaks, so generally these will be non-stop classes. Guys, any question, any doubt till now, whatever we have configured?
Hi, I didn't quite get about the policies which you spoke. I mean, installing policies, right? So, can we have multiple policies, or you know, like if we want to create a new policy, how to do that? Is it just a brief overview?
Yes, yes.
We'll be covering in the
Yes.
next class.
So, I'll tell you what is that. We discussed about the inspection settings for individual gateway. That was not the standard firewall policy. This is the default implied rule policy. And we can create these two. Okay. So this was the implied policy. This is not the default policy. This is the implied policy, inspection policy basically. For these policies, if you want to create a new policy, all you have to do is create. You can go here and we can create new policies as well. That is absolutely fine. We can create a new policy and we can name it anything. Let's say that was standard policy. I'll say Vikas firewall policy. Or I'll say Blade 1 policy. Blade 1. So for Blade 1, I have this. Blade 2, I have another policy. Those are also possible. That is absolutely fine. So what I'm doing is, for the standard policy, we'll go to gateway, one of the gateways. I have two gateways here. And the standard 2 policy, which is basically, if I go here, Blade 1 policy will go to the other blade. Now, the blade policy you see is dropping, and the standard policy is permitting. Correct?
Sir, one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the inspection set shared policies.
Your voice is breaking. Can you speak a little clear?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, it's better.
Yeah. Under shared policies, the inspection settings is being applied, right? So does that mean the inspection settings are common to all the gateways?
No, that's what I said, that you by default is shared, but I changed it to the individual gateway. I went to the gateway and changed his policy. I changed his policy. I can change the policy.
But how do I specify that this policy goes to this particular blade?
You can see from here, right? This is the place. Now your gateway of 98 has Vikas policy, 99 has default policy. This is what I just changed, right? I manually changed it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Correct. So the shared policy is by default shared, but it doesn't mean that you are forced to share. You can basically change it anytime. These are kind of can be changed, right? I just showed you the example. This particular blade is now changed to Vikas default policy of inspection policies.
Okay, how you can assign new inspection to the new policy that you applied for a Blade 1, please?
It's done. This is already done. This is how you do it. I just did that.
We apply Vikas policy to .98 blade. So I believe that this Vikas policy will override the default inspection, and default inspection policies will no longer be applicable to .98.
No, so let me explain here. Let's come back to this. We are getting confused between two things. So we have a gateway. In that we have two policies. One is implied policy, which is basically default inspection policy or inspection policy. Okay. The second one we have is firewall policy. The inspection policy comes before firewall policy. So for this particular gateway GW, I have given Vikas policy as inspection policy and Blade 1 policy as firewall policy. You got the point. Vikas policy I configured under inspection for inspection related stuff, and firewall rule policy like ACL is I configured the name I've given is blade 1 policy. These are two different policies. These are different policies. I did show you both the configuration of both. So here it's the default is Vikas policy, and here the blade 1 policy is I will apply to the second blade, which is basically again drop. I'll convert it because otherwise I'll lose the access of few things. Now when I try to install, it will ask me remember that I said install policy blade 1. I did not go to standard and say install policy. I went to blade 1 and clicked on install policy. Now it will ask me blade 1 policy, where do you want to install it? Correct? In that case, I will choose blade number 1, which is 98.
Sir, one quick question
here. Now see, before that it was not asking me. Before that it was because there was one policy. So it was pushing on the blade. Now it is asking me which policy you want to push. I am saying blade 1 policy. Now he is asking me out of 2 blades, where do you want to push this policy? I'll say blade 1. So this firewall policy is for this.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
Yeah, the question is implied policy is the default policy. You can customize that one, right?
You can, yeah, you can customize both.
Sir,
yes.
Which you need to explain.
Oh, there is no interface defined, so I have to. Yeah. Okay. Yes. What is the question?
Yeah, can you please open the MS Paint?
MS Paint. Okay.
Yeah. You have Vikas inspection policies, right?
Yes. Yes.
So only for inspection, and that is customized policy which we created.
Yeah, this is what we created for the firewall rule.
Yeah, I understand that. That is for ACL, and that the top one for inspection. But my question is, by default, the firewall will have default inspection policies, right?
No, your voice is breaking.
No, by default, the firewall will have default inspection policies. Am I right?
This is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So now we have customized and created a new policy called Vikas policy, and we have applied to the firewall. So in that case, will default inspection still be applicable, or so how is it work?
No, default now, because the change, that was the name of the policy. See, I don't know if you guys are aware of MPF. Okay, on the Cisco ASA. In Cisco ASA, what happens is there is this, all these are under inspection rules, right? That is known as modular policy framework, MPF. And then you have ACL applied on the interfaces. So this is exactly same copy of the same thing. You have modular policy framework. This is your inspection rules, right? Under that, if you do show policy map kind of thing, all that inspection policy says inspect FTP and all that, that is basically all deep packet inspection. This is known as deep packet inspection. So this policy is basically, the name is changed to Vikas, and further any change can be done to Vikas. By default, the name was default. Okay, and this is your firewall rules. So there is no question, once it is changed to Vikas, there is no question of touching the default, because default is different policy and Vikas is different policy. So whatever I do under Vikas will be applicable to this. I may enable some protocols, I may disable some protocols under Vikas. Correct. So this thing is basically done in ASA like MPF and ACL. Right? You guys have done ASA, right? Guys, your voice is not coming. Any question on this?
Yeah, this is an I got it.
Okay.
Sir, one question. I don't know the Cisco ASA, so
Okay.
there is no issue, right, to learning the checkpoint.
No, it's same. All firewalls are same. The thing is, because I have some student here who
No,
are
I
yeah.
don't know the ASA, so I can learn in checkpoint, right?
Yeah, good. And with checkpoint, you will also learn ASA because I will keep on referring that because most of the students are from that background. So at least you will come to know that in ASA there is this thing is called NPF.
Yeah, you are right. Thank you
Yeah.
for giving an example similar to ASA because that helps us to understand more.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
No problem.
Yeah, because just to recollect, we have policy map will have a default inspection, right? Class
Yes.
default inspection. Yeah. So now under in the same policy map, the first one will be default, and second one will be this because policy, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what we have. That's what we have done. So in this case, both default inspection and Vikas inspection will also applicable.
Absolutely. And this is deep packet inspection policy, which goes up to layer 7. And this is our firewall policy, which also goes to layer 7, but this is customized by us. See here under this, let's say we want to block yahoo.com, okay, or something. We can do ourselves, URL filtering and all that, right? Or maybe some shopping sites or social media sites and all that. We will have to do using firewall policy. In inspection policy is deep packet inspection for protocols which are generally not configured by administrator because we don't know deep about MGCP and SIP and all those things. Firewall vendor has much more bigger knowledge than us. So they are doing all those complicated tasks for us. Think about, let me give you one example. Let's say you have to buy a car and you want to drive a car, correct? You need to know very basic. You have zero idea of how a car is manufactured, how the engines are manufactured, inside engine, what are the various components you have, how petrol is converted to the torque, and how do you basically align it to the wheels, and how do you apply the power brakes. If you have to learn science behind it, you probably will be the factory owner. The firewall company says you just become an administrator, the rest of the deep stuff I will take care of that. So the car company says you just learn how to handle steering, clutch, gear, and basic stuff. Rest of the stuff, you don't need to be a PhD from Stanford to understand how to increase the power of the engines. Because those companies are billion-dollar companies, right? So you don't have to get into that science. Similarly, Checkpoint tells you that you don't get into C++ and Python. I will program the operating system. You click on the buttons and enable or disable the features. Correct. So all the deep packet that is happening, most of it is enabled. See, the option that we have, we do not have an option to program any of these. We have an option to say active, enable or disable the options. As simple as that. We do not have any other option other than this. Right. Now it says that these options, if you want to go further to a gateway, you can configure these options into the gateway as well. Okay, guys, anything else here for the time being? Any other question on this? Whatever I have covered till now. The thing that we discussed before is different from this one. Okay, so what we discussed here, implied rules, is different from inspection rules, right? So implied rules are the internal communication allowed or denied before your ACL rules start. This is your ACL. this is the rule configured by us, correct? The rule configured by us. And before that, the implied rule. And before that, inspection rules. Implied rules are firewall rules, correct? They are also, these are the rules which are allowing the management server to talk to various blades. See, management server talking to IPS blade, management server talking to firewall blade, FW1 module, firewall module talking to logging server, okay, which is again management server, and all these rules. By default, they can communicate to each other. Why are they able to communicate? Because the trust is established. Okay, so let me put it into MS Paint, all three items. This is your firewall. In this you have by default inspection rules, inspection settings, which is basically deep packet. We call it DP, deep packet inspection. This is different. Implied rules, which is to the firewall. Most of the items are related to the firewall. Can you do SSH to firewall? Can you do ICMP to firewall? Can the firewall talk to the management server? All those are implied rules. On the top of it, you have third item, which is configured by you, firewall policy. Correct? So the order of operation is inspection settings, implied rules, firewall policy. After firewall policy, the NAT policy generally. Okay. After that, depending on what you have is VPNs, all kind of VPNs, and further after that, you have all the threat prevention. These are the order of operation. Under threat prevention, you have 6 items: antivirus, anti-bot, anti-malware, intrusion prevention systems, and all that. Then they will come under. So this is the order of operation. This is the first one, and then further it keeps on checking all these items. There is a possibility something is allowed by firewall policy, but is prevented by the IPS or other things. Correct? So it depends on what blades have you enabled. If these blades are enabled, one by one, the item has to pass through, the packet has to pass through all the checkpoints. See, that's the reason they are calling it checkpoint. Checkpoint number 1, checkpoint number 2, checkpoint number 3, checkpoint number 4, checkpoint number 5. You have 16 total blades to go through. Maybe you can do the internet access, but when you do internet access, you downloaded a malware, so malware blade will stop it. See, firewall is not blocking it. Firewall allows you to go to some website, right? So firewall rule is matched. You can go to those websites. Websites are clean. But then we realize that the file that you have has a malware. So here the threat prevention rule will block it. Got the point? So these are multiple levels of checkpoint that you have. It will keep on passing through those granular rules, and if it doesn't match at one point, it is going to block it.
So because one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the inspection.
Yes.
So is it? I think it's for both through the firewall and through the firewall, right? The first one, deep packet inspection.
Generally the inspection is through the firewall. The inspection is through the firewall. Implied rules are to the firewall. If you see all this here, there is not a single option that we can see which can relate to the firewall. It's all through the firewall. So inspection settings are through the firewall, and implied rules are to the firewall.
So the implied rules are ACLs.
These are, yes, hidden ACLs. Absolutely correct. But again, it gives us ability that you can go and you can configure your implied rule. You can change implied rules. There's no problem with that. You can change the implied rules. You can log the implied rules. You can change the implied rules. Generally, the logging is not enabled. So if something is being stopped by the hidden rules, you will not come to know. So it's a good idea to do the logging of the hidden rules. See, this is our rule. We configured this rule. So whatever we choose here, logging, yes, we can enable logging. That's fine. It has no problem with that. Correct. But the implied rules by default doesn't have the logging enabled. So it's a good idea to keep logging enabled for implied rules, so that if anything happens because of the implied rules, maybe you are not able to do telnet or SSH or something because in implied rules it may be blocked, may not be permitted, right? So if the logging is there, we will be at least able to see it. There's something called application wiki. Yes, guys, any question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we not have any inspection for to the firewall traffic? Do we have any inspection for to the firewall?
Okay. Why do you want to inspect anything to the firewall?
I'm not sure. I was just checking because in ASA, right? When we make changes, so if I give show connection, include my PCIP, that will be in state table, right?
Correct. That is through the firewall.
Yeah. No, that is to the firewall traffic.
No, to the firewall, you do not have a state table to the firewall. When you have a traffic hitting the firewall to the firewall, it cannot have a state table. It cannot be part of state table because there is no stateful inspection. You will drop to the firewall and you will come back. You are not passing through the firewall. If you're not passing through the firewall, there is no state possibility.
Okay. So, so what do we call that scenario? Any technical terms for that?
No, that is general traffic. It's not a stateful traffic because you go to the firewall and come back from firewall. Let's say you tell it to firewall, SSH to firewall, ping to firewall. You never pass through the engine to go, because only when you pass from one interface to another interface, you will hit the stateful table, the state table here, right, or MPF here. And that's the time you will be converted to stateful traffic. But if you are just going to the firewall, generally you have all traffic blocked except permit, telnet, SSH, and some basic stuff.
Okay.
So there is no requirement of, because there is no traffic passing through the firewall, so there is no requirement to inspect anything, because by default rules are as such that only limited functions are allowed to the firewall. Rest everything else is blocked to the firewall. Okay, that's the reason the inspection policies are not related to that scenario. Okay, guys, any other question? So here, this is the option which is given in the checkpoint firewall here, application wiki. When you click on it, it will take you to this particular link where you can see all the categories. If you want to check any kind of site, what are the risk levels? The checkpoint has these options here. So in the next class, when we do firewall rules, we will do URL filtering, content blocking or content analysis, content related features. We will actually be able to see this, but just to show you the features here, you have the application wiki here. You can see installation history, how many times policies have been installed, what was the last time any policy was installed, and you can see the certificate being issued to the client. Okay, and you can also see VPN communities. You have remote access and this, and if you want to create some kind of ipsec VPN and all that, those stuff. So here, these are the options you have. on the right hand side or on the top you have objects, and here also you have objects. Here you can see what version of the operating system you are using, smart console and all that. Here you have all kind of services, and you can create your own services if these are by default. If you want to check for botnet or for BitTorrent what ports are being used, Trojan, different Trojans, by default all TCP ports are basically given there. Objects are created for this. Otherwise you can create any object that you want to create. Network, let's say I have a subnet, I want to create it, I can do it from here, and you can basically create anything else that you want to create. You want to authenticate using radius, TACAS and all that, all those options are basically there. You want to connect it to your Cisco Nexus APIC 9K, you can do that. AWS, Azure, NSX, OpenStack, vCenter, you can connect it to the cloud also. Those are the options available to you. Okay, the cloud management is possible. So huge number of options are basically pre-configured in the object here. When we do the examples, we will see if you are doing any rate limiting, you can choose the rate limiting 10 Mbps by default. These are the options, but you can actually create a new object. If you want to keep your, let's say for one user, you want to keep the speed of that user to maximum 10 Mbps. So you have an option, apply that to user, and he will not be able to cross 10 Mbps. Upload or download, you can choose you want upload or download, you can set for a certain user and all those things. So a huge detailed number of options. Further, if you go inside it, you will actually see, like I just showed you, the cloud options and all that. So it does support all the cloud options. So everything is well organized in these 8 to 10 windows here, beautifully. Again, I told you, whatever changes you make, you can, let's say this policy, I'll say new changes on today, so 16th December 2018, and you can put the configuration, new firewall rule or for server 1 and all that. So that's basically there. When I publish it, you see that it will keep a revision history of whatever changes I install it. It will keep an idea about my policy, that whatever I'm doing, it will have.
You can roll back to a previous policy.
You can roll back to a previous policy as well. Absolutely. Later on, I have to configure interfaces and other things. I have not enabled a few things, so it's not taking the policy right now. There is only one network interface defined for object blade one. At least one more interface should be configured to have these features or policy. So how do we do that? We go to both the firewalls. I'll go here and I will configure at least 2 interfaces. So let's say this interface I'm configuring as outside, and it is 192.168.0.maybe 102.255.255.255.0. Okay, and I will configure this as inside 192.168. Sorry, 10.102. So 2 interfaces are configured and enabled. Okay, and I go to the other Gaia, which is 99. This was 98. So let's do that. I'll go here and then we go to outside. We go to this one, 192.168.0.108. I'll go to inside. This is my inside. Enable the interface. And 192, sorry, 10.1.1.108. Okay, 108, 108, and here it should be 102, 102, correct? Outside 102, inside 110 subnet and 192, and here it is 108, 108, same subnets, 2 firewalls. Now I'll go here and I will pull my gateways properties here because it doesn't have the topology. So I'll go to network management. I will try to fetch with the interfaces. These are all interfaces have come now. Now the firewall is ready for configuration of the policy. Okay. Similarly, I will go to the second gateway and I will bring his topology also. He doesn't have all that. Second gateway, his policy, his interfaces. Okay. Now I'll go back again to set up inside and outside interfaces. So I'll go to the 3 interfaces. Okay. If 0 cannot be, because this is management, so I will configure it as it is wrongly defined as external. It should be internal. Override. It should be internal, defined by network and IP address. That's absolutely fine. Anti-spoofing is not required on this. I don't really need it. So okay. Cool. I'll go to this one. This is my outside interface, so I'll go and change it to the outside. Alright, this is going to be internet connected interface. Okay, when you do netting and other things, it's very important to define which interface is connecting to internet and which is not connected to other. Now this is my internal network, so this is internal, absolutely correct, right? So this firewall is fine. I'll go to the blade 1 now. Okay, this is blade 1 only, so I'll go to this firewall. Here is again wrong, so I'll go and change this interface. It should not be external, it should be internal. Override, make it internal, defined by this. Spoofing is not required on management interface. Okay. We'll discuss about what is spoofing today after I set this up. This is external interface connecting to internet, so that's fine. I don't need spoofing, but I'll just keep it here. That's no problem. And this is internal, absolutely correct. So now I should be able to push my policy, save and push the policy. So I will push for standard policy on this particular blade, correct? Install it. Okay, done, successful. We will go to the second policy, install policy again, pick up blade 1 policy and apply to blade number 1. Install. So 2 different policies for 2 different gateways. Okay, so that's it. The second policy is also fine. Standard got installed on this gateway, correct? Standard got installed on this gateway and blade 1 policy got installed on blade 1 gateway. Show connection, it will not be possible here, but you can see all the connections basically into your logging and monitoring. Here you can see what kind of connections are going through, and here you should be able to see most of it. So if I go to the traffic, allowed traffic, you should be able to see all that. What kind of connections are allowed, which rule has allowed, what's going on. Everything is basically possible here. Further, if you want to check for certain host, you can basically check for certain host rules. Let's say you have source, right? Source as 172.16.0. something. So we can basically see for this particular source, if any traffic is matching, we'll be able to see that. If we want to check any destination also, that's absolutely fine. We can check the destination also. So you have all the options available here. You will be able to see in the logging and monitoring. It has everything. Anything, only firewall related traffic, any traffic hitting just the firewall, you can see that what traffic is being dropped right now. Some broadcast traffic, you see that? There was some destination is broadcast, is being dropped by firewall. Firewall doesn't allow broadcast traffic. Further, I double click on it, I will be probably able to see UDP. This was okay, so that traffic is by default blocked. Which policy is blocking it? Blade 1 policy is doing it on blade 1, and standard policy doing on this particular gateway. By default, broadcast traffic is not allowed in any of the firewalls. Correct? Multicast and broadcast traffic on layer 3 firewalls. Multicast, you have to configure certain rules to allow it. Broadcast traffic by default is not allowed to pass through the firewall. So we will be able to see everything using logging and monitoring. A lot of stuff can be done on the security policy itself. Once I have it configured, I'll show you. I will also show you in the policy itself. What is being permitted is shown here. Also on the top of it, I can see there is a packet mode. So when I do next class, I'll show you how to do a security policy ACL rules, and also the multi-layer ACL rules. How do you create multi-layer ACL rules? This is called unified. This is a new feature in R8010, okay, which is basically a unified approach of the ACL rules. Okay, so this is the complete topic on its own. If I touch this one, it's basically just these two things are a complete topic on its own. So today was the basic. Any question, guys, up to here? Installation type, standard, we did both, right? So let's summarize what is that we have done. In this, we basically did the brief of it. What are the models available, right? Installations. We did in the, so which is installation type is already given here. We had two types, right? Distributed and standalone. We created a policy for inspections, right? We looked at implied rules, by default implied rules, and we also looked at firewall policy. We created two policies. One is blade 1, separate policies for two different blades. Inside the policy, we did not configure anything. We just created the structure of the policy, how the structure works. Further, there will be firewall rules inside the firewall policy. What are the content that we are going to have, correct? And the basic stuff about, so the other thing that I want to do, one more feature here is, we configured the interfaces of the firewall, right? We also saw that how the clustering feature is not available in the standalone mode. Now, the other thing that is very important is if you want for your firewall to go to internet, you have to configure your default route correctly. So by default, this is not set correctly. I should have it 0.1. For both my firewalls to go out, I need to have correct rules configured here. Oh, shit. I don't know how it goes up. Okay, so here it is. Full screen, so 192.168.0.1. Now our firewall can go to internet. This is for whom? This is for the firewall. Also, your firewall will allow the traffic to go to the internet now, because otherwise the inside user, when they try to go to internet, if your firewall routing is not configured, the traffic cannot go out. Correct? See, what is the basic requirement is, let me go back to this. The basic requirement of Gaia is to provide these features should be configured, which is interfaces and basic routing, so that this interface becomes this and you give an IP address. This becomes outside and you give an IP address to it, and you set a default route. This is the responsibility of the Gaia, because the traffic has to leave. All those functions need to be done by Gaia. Inside it, whatever you have, Smart Console has all the blades and all that. Those are firewall high, top layer functions, application layer functions and all that. After that, the traffic has to exit. If the default gateway of the Gaia is not set to the outside world, the traffic cannot go out. The user cannot go out to the outside world. Also from the outside world, if I, let's say, want to telnet or SSH to the outside interface, I don't know what's the outside. Okay, let me try this. .192.168.0.108. Now I can tell from telnet or SSH from outside world. What IP I used? I used the outside IP. I just configured this outside IP. That means because his default gateway is rightly connected, he can go out and I can go in. Before that, I was using management IP to telnet or SSH rather. I never used telnet. Correct? Can I ping the outside world? Ping 192.168.0.1. I can ping it. Can I ping the gateway outside world also? Further, ping 4.2.2.2. I can ping it. That means I can go to internet. Can I ping yahoo.com? Do you think I'll be able to ping? Yeah. You do not have a DNS server configured. You can only ping IP. A host name conversion is the job of DNS server. DNS server is not there. But I can ping public IPs because I have gateway set. So I don't need any resolution. I'm directly giving IPs. So that's the reason right gateway is the most important requirement. From outside world, I'm able to, so from internet, you can, do SSH to your checkpoint, because by default, you have configured implied rules. Remember that. You have configured implied rules. If you had not configured implied rules for these gateways, in that case, it was a different story. If we had not done this here, telnet and SSH to these gateways, see that, this one, then it was a different story. But because this is there, Okay, ICMP is there. That's the reason I'm able to ping it. If ICMP I disabled, to the firewall pinging will not be possible in that. Now, whatever you do, whether implied or physical or anything, remember that you have to install the policy. Otherwise, your implied rules will not go back to firewall. The changes you made will not go to firewall and will not be applied to the respective gateway. Okay, and each time you make a change, always type some configuration changes, whatever changes you did, so that you remember that date these changes were basically made. So you have a log of the changes as well. Okay, the last feature for today is this interface anti-spoofing. What is anti-spoofing? So anti-spoofing is very simple concept, correct? That let's say you have 10.1.1.0 subnet /24 on this interface, correct? Now, because in your routing table you have this now, because it's your interface, you of course it is there in your routing table, correct? We can check that in the Gaia if it is there part of our routing table or not. Static routes, go to monitoring. It should be, or go to the routing table. Here it is, right? It is my directly connected interfaces. It is active. Now this interface, which is there in my routing table, tomorrow some user try to come from the outside world for this. Will you accept it? Right? That means somebody is trying to spoof this subnet. How is it possible? This is my internal subnet, or maybe I have a couple of internal subnets. If somebody try to spoof this IP, try to come from outside world, I will not permit that, because the checkpoint firewall knows this networks can only come from this interface. Correct? This is called spoofing and anti-spoofing. If you disable this feature, it's called anti-spoofing. And if they are allowed, they can come from outside world, they spoof your IP address subnets, that's called spoofing. But you have to configure this on the firewalls yourself. They are by default, they are not enabled on the interfaces. So you have to configure these properties on the interfaces. Okay, it's not here. It has to be on this one. We go to the any interface and modify and configure the anti-spoofing. You can leave it, detect it, or you can prevent it. You can log the track of any kind of spoofing happening. You can log it. Okay, guys, any question now? Any kind of doubt, any question that we have?
And checkpoint will declare as a transparent.
In fact, you can do that. The deployment being the transparent mode as well. You will just give management IP, and rest of the interfaces you will configure as transparent.
In checkpoint, do we have option like create users?
Yeah, you can create users here. So you want to create different user for different purpose. This is what is the next class with the ACL rule. I will show you how to create users. Let's say you create a user here, and then there are predefined rules. You can create those rules, and you can create the roles also. So yes. So here you can create your own defined rules, and these are the properties that can be attached to the role, and further this role can be applied to the user. So one guy is only responsible for routing. So create a rule for routing. If you want to attach some commands to that particular role, the commands are also available for you. You can attach the commands. He should only do those commands. So all those things are there. In the next class, I will explain all these functions. We may not do all the the function like BGP and all that is not part of this particular syllabus. Okay, but we will look at all these options. I'll explain you all that. This is for the last class. Generally, we do clustering, very advanced topic. Once you become comfortable with installation and basic routing and all those things, then only the advanced option comes. First, you need to have hands-on, a good practice on this so that you can reach to that level. Because mobile access, site-to-site VPN, those are advanced topics. Once you go through it, you reach to the clustering level. Okay, I have a folder available. I'll send you on the email, or we have a WhatsApp group also. I can add you to that WhatsApp group where we already have previous batch students, and whatever update I put, generally I put it at that place. Okay, so I'll give you the number and you can do that. Okay, guys, any question before I close the today's session?
Yes, just honestly, I have a question about how we do with the virtual lab. We do it the same way.
Yes, yes, you have to install it in your laptop, and you have to practice it in that.
Okay. Second thing is that about the exam. Do we cover everything for the CCSA exam, or?
It is for the CCSA. It's nothing of CCSE is covered in this. It's only purely CCSA.
Yeah, I mean CCSA, sorry.
Yeah, it's for CCSA. Whatever I'm covering, if you look at the curriculum book that I've shared, you just prepare with that. Plus, you need to know technology. You should be able to clear it.
Okay, another question is kind of honestly about the license. What do we have to do after 15 days?
After 15 days, you reinstall. It takes 10 minutes to reinstall the firewall. Or you can purchase 6 lakh rupees license as well. So depending on what option you like, you can go ahead with that. I generally prefer the 15 days option. It takes 15 minutes to reinstall and do practice for 15 days.
Okay, that means we can get a backup. So we did it before, and then we apply the backup to the new installation.
Yes, 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 correct.